I don't know about y'all, but that song gets me fired up every time I'm about to start the show. Even if I'm like, oh man, I need to, get fired up for the show and I can't do it myself. As soon as I hit that button and the song pops on, I'm like, okay, it's ready to go. But we are here. Welcome to the Buzz Reality Show, the #1 Liberty podcast out of Detroit. I am your Motor City Radical, Sean Collins, and we have a very special guest from the land down under, Miss Lady Liberty, Australia, Kate Fantinel. How you doing?
I am doing all the much better for speaking with you tonight, Sean, and cheers to you. Merry
Cheers.
Christmas. We can say Merry Christmas
Merry
here.
Christmas. And we just had Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving too. All the things. And if we want to cover all of our tracks, and I just made my chair jump because I was sinking in my chair because I'm fat. But if we want to cover all of our tracks, we should just say Merry Kwanzaa because you're covering all the December holidays at one time. I'm sure y'all can figure it out from there. I think I'm hilarious, but I promise not to talk about a certain group of people on my show anymore. So Merry Kwanzaa, and we'll leave it at that. Boom, boom. But Miss Kate, what's up, dude?
I'm so excited. I've contacted you to come on your show because you're my second favorite Liberty podcast, only behind Punk Rock Libertarians.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's only because I've been doing shows for longer than you and I met them before I met you. That's why they're my #1. But honestly, I'm so glad that you've returned to the airwaves. I know it can be scary putting your views out there, especially where I'm from in Australia. We can talk about that later. But it's been so good to see you back doing what you're good at, spreading the good word of liberty to all. And your guests have been fantastic. Shout out to Rectenwald. He is an absolute bloody legend. I love him, even if he got a bit carried away at the LNC, of course. He wrecked himself, checked himself, and then wrecked himself. And Amity too, she's in the chat. G'day, you're such a sweetheart. I don't think I've actually met Amity from memory, but she's so sweet. She's just the perfect Lady Liberty out there. I just love listening to her. And of course, her partner from Are You Smarter Than a Politician?
Oh, yeah. And we got Terry. We got Terry in the chat too, who's from the same show. She does all the scorekeeping.
Yes, if you want to get me on, Terry, at least I'll be smarter than an Australian politician, I think. Although the bar's very low, especially with what they've been doing lately in my home country.
I know, that's so maybe we should start there. I was having a hard time figuring out where we should start because there's so much going on, but we should probably start there because it'll all tie in together. Honestly, what you're about to say and what I'm going to bring to the table on this conversation it'll all come together at the end. I promise you that. But you have since moved from Australia to Australia, not Australia. A lot of us Americans like to say Australia. It's Australia.
But you don't even have to say the Aussie. You can just say Australia.
We can just say Aussie, oi, oi, oi.
Aussie. That's the Kiwis call us Aussies going over to Oz. Just call it Oz, the land of Oz.
It is the land of Oz. It can be the land of Oz. I know they have a lot of creatures there that I'm absolutely terrified of. So, yeah.
They're worth the risk, buds. I cannot wait to be home for New Year's in Perth. It's just going to be amazing being on the beaches again over there. I know that Australia has turned into a bit of a tyranny state, especially with the social media ban that we'll have a chat about. But the landscape, even the people, even though a lot of them are NPCs, we have such a good, unique culture. Everyone loves Australians over here. It's just a shame that my government is ruining the place.
That's hilarious. Not really hilarious, but the whole thing is it is a gorgeous place. Like I've actually never been to Australia, but I've seen the videos and I've followed people from there. And if you're a surfer, if you love the ocean, oh boy, there's no better surfing than those shores there. None. I've talked to many surfers. I lived in Florida for a couple of years when I was a strapping young buck. And, I hung out with some people who surfed and whatever, and they would travel. They would either go all the way to the Pacific Ocean to the to California, or they would go all the way to the land down under and surf those. And they were talking about waves that were serious 12-footers, and like you just go ride those things. I'm like, barely ride like a baby wave, let alone a 12-footer. I'd drown.
I'm pretty sure the movie Point Break, that old school Keanu movie, Point Break? Some of those surfing scenes were filmed down under, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
And Outback too
is in that movie.
Yes, that's one of my favorite movies. I don't like the remake, really. I mean, it's good value, I suppose, but nothing compares to the original Point Break.
No, nothing. That was a fantastic movie. The storyline, everything was great about it. And Patrick Swayze holds a near and dear place in my heart just because my grandmother, who's no longer with us, she's been gone for a long time, but she was like hubba hubba when it came to Patrick Swayze. She was all about Patrick Swayze. I remember she loved watching Dirty Dancing back in the day. That was her flick. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And then my mom is hubba hubba over Patrick Swayze and actually named her cat after Swayze. Her cat's name is Swayze. It's hilarious. So the movie's badass. If you've never seen it, you should check it out.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yes.
But what the hell is happening in the land down under? Because it went from bad to worse very fast.
Well, since I've left even. So yesterday, the social media ban on anyone under 16 came into effect. And in practice, this means the people need to prove that they're over the age of 16 to use social media. And they're saying it's to protect the kids because social media is addictive now. They've even compared it to being as addictive as alcohol, social media. So they've said we're banning for under 16s, which means everyone who has a social media account across a specific set of platforms, excluding Blue Sky, specifically excluding Blue Sky, the leftist cesspit, but X is banned, Facebook's banned, Instagram, TikTok. Maybe I agree with TikTok because I think it's rubbish, but that's beside the point. We shouldn't be banning things that the parents should be in charge of. But the government has run this narrative. We're protecting the children. A lot of people agree that there is harm in using social media and there's harm in using anything in excess. It's all about moderation and parenting the child to make sure they're in a safe space all the time, including when they're online, not just when they're at the playground. So the government has stepped in and is now dictating that the kids can't use social media. And of course, I grew up in the country. I had MySpace. That was how I communicated with my friends because we didn't live near each other and we had to wait till we were 16 to get our driver's license to socialize in person. So they're essentially, social media is meant to be a social activity that you partake in moderation and in circumstances you're comfortable with. And so now everyone has to prove they're over the age of 16. And
now,
upload
they have to show their ID?
They have to upload a government-issued identification, and then it does a selfie to match you with that, and then that's stored in their digital system.
So now they have all your fucking information. That's
yes.
Great. That's fantastic.
But it's gone further than that. So on December 27, which is when I'll be home, anyone who logs on to do a Google search engines, you will have to prove you're over the age of 16. So they want to see what you're searching so they can ban someone under 16 from finding X. It's just, and we all have to comply if we want to get online. Like this has gotten to the point, and the government, and no one's mentioned this, the Australian government, it's a national internet infrastructure. It's called the National Broadband Network, and we have some of the shittiest internet speeds in the world, like even compared to some African countries. It's wild. So people are all connected on a government-run internet, and there are also laws about whether they can access your internet through that connection, and they can. They've given themselves that power. So unless you're on Starlink, the government's already tracking your internet behavior, but now it's getting to the point where they'll track what you're searching, And then, of course, capturing the next generation of people in this digital ID. And the worst part, sorry, I know I'm ranting, the worst part is now they are looking at a system where the parents can report their kids to the government if they catch them using social media. Now, at the moment, the fine is placed on the tech company for letting a 16-year-old on someone under 16 on their platforms. But then you're just creating a government list of people, children, who are against this authoritarian control as a child. And the parent is going to be able to do that. It is dystopian, buds. My heart is breaking for Australia. In the international coverage, world leading ban on so like it's a good thing. And it's also about free speech. This wouldn't fly here in the United States with your First Amendment. No way.
But would it though? Like, would it fly? Because we're in a situation right now where the Trump administration is actively trying to do something to where like they're looking up these influencers, say on X, right? And they're finding these influencers on X, and they're going to start labeling them as extremists or not. Like somebody like me is screwed. Somebody like me is screwed. You know, anybody who's speaking out against the government tyranny or against the banking cabals or against the endless wars or anything like that, all of a sudden you're an extremist. You know, it's so crazy how they want to label liberty-minded folks as these extremists against power when the only thing that is extreme is control itself. We are born sovereign. We are born sovereign individuals as biblical. And these people want to play God and say that they're higher than the Almighty. But there's plenty of cases in the Bible that state that we are sovereign and there's only one authority, and the authority is Christ. Whether you're a Christian or not, I don't really know. But if you're here in the United States that claims to be a quote unquote Christian nation, but yet are controlled by satanic cabals, whether it's the banking system or people from other countries and whatever. And I'm not just talking about one country in particular. I'm talking about any foreign lobbyist, where are we going from here? And so the things that are happening in Australia right now aren't too far-fetched from happening here in the United States. And this is one reason I tell people all the time, we talked about this before we started. We have to start talking to immigrants, people who came here from tyranny, socialism, communism, fascism, whatever you want to call it, people that left those places to come here to be safer. And now this country is turning into something that they left. I have a good buddy of mine who's Assyrian, and Assyrians are in the book of Genesis. They've been around for thousands and thousands of years. They're from Iraq, and he left Iraq for the tyranny, the fascism, the murder, the everything. I mean, he grew up watching Christians get slaughtered by Muslims, in broad daylight. It was just a thing. That's what happened. Now, not to make it all religious or anything like that, but like this is what he left. And now he came here, and it was a great when he came here. He's like, oh my gosh, land of the free, home of the brave. We got all these rights and stuff like that. But now he's going, hey, wait a minute here. Just wait 1 second, because I left Iraq for the reasons that are, that what the government is doing here now. And so this is why it's important to talk to people from other countries. I love that you came on, especially during right now, because things are getting hot here in the United States when it comes to the immigration and blah, blah, blah. So like, please tell us the stories that are going on in Australia, because that shit's coming to a city near you. I promise you guys.
Well, I think the reason I'm so glad to be here in the United States, in Texas specifically, is because we have the Second Amendment here. You have something in your constitution acknowledged by your government that says if there is tyranny, you can fight back, and you have the means to, because that is something protected, and it is a God-given right. The right to life, the right to self-defense. We don't have any self-defense rights back home, not even with pepper spray. I've ranted about this before. But America is the last beacon of liberty and hope for the Western world because we the people, have the means to defend ourselves, to defend our property and defend our liberty. Now, of course, there's bullshit laws that we have to fight back against. And that's why I'm so glad to be part of the Second Amendment community here, because your organizations have the balls to take things to court. It breaches the Second Amendment. Any whiff of an infringement, they are in the halls in the Capitol. They are in the state legislators lobbying. I've seen it. I've been witness to it here in Texas, and I've been to all these gun events. You are mobilized and you have that right acknowledged by your government. We don't have that right acknowledged by our government in Australia. Hell no. We don't even have our free speech rights. So America is the only, I know it is grim times that we are living through internationally ever since the early 2020s and all of that the horrors. But this is the last place I see for hope in the Western world. That's why I'm so glad to be here.
Well, you're not wrong. So, like, don't get me wrong. We have a lot to complain about here in the United States. But there is no better place in the entire world you can be. There really isn't. You know, some might argue Switzerland, and I have a hard argument. You know, I don't have a really
It's
hard
too cold for me there.
Exactly. Like, it gets really cold and stuff. Like, I'm not leaving Michigan to go be cold again. If I'm going somewhere, I'm going somewhere very warm where the snow doesn't come. Right now, there's about 4 inches of snow on my ground right now.
Wow.
And it's about 15 degrees. So just to put that into perspective for you, it's cold here. I almost wore a winter skull cap down here because I do this in my basement and it gets cold down here. But thanks to the whiskey, I'm feeling a little warm. I have to wear the winter hat. But now, riddle me this. Actually, tell us exactly how Australia lost their guns. Start from the beginning and take us to now, because there's going to be, and I'm probably going to interrupt you in between because there's a lot of things that are happening now that are going to lead us to where Australia is right now. But for now, we're kind of okay. Because, it's one of those things where, like, there's that saying that, with guns, we are free, and without guns, we are slaves.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of argue that because from January to May, you work for the United States government. They take your money. That's the percentage they take. So, for the first, quarter of the year, they're taking all your money and you're working for free. What is that? That's slavery. Is that chattel slavery? Well, no, it's not until you don't pay your taxes. When you don't pay your taxes, it could turn into chattel slavery because they're going to come to your house with people with guns and either arrest you or kill you, or both maybe, you never know. But the fact of the matter is that there's a starting point and there's an ending point to where they come and take your firearms. And I know there was a time, because we've talked many times before, where you guys were allowed to have guns. You guys had guns. It was okay. And then it wasn't. So kind of walk us through that. And if the stories start feeling eerily familiar, chat, you know what it is.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that hunting is part of our culture in Australia. We have massive feral animal problems, from goats to kangaroos if they get too big in numbers. So we've always had a culture of hunting and protecting our beautiful landscape. And I was blessed to be born into a home in outback South Australia where my father was part of this community, volunteer hunter, loved his pistol shooting. So I was born into this culture that a lot of Australians have, particularly from the country. And then in 1996, in April, there was a mass shooting with 35 people murdered in a small town called Port Arthur in Tassie, the little island down the bottom of Australia. And it was alleged and found by the authorities to be a lone gunman who was known to police and had mental health issues, and then conducted this mass shooting. That's what we've been taught in Australia. There is a documentary, a doco on YouTube, that is contesting the narrative we've been told by the government. I don't have the definitive answer right now. There was no royal commission into what happened. We didn't get to see the docs, the evidence. There was some questionable interrogation techniques. There's all sorts. If you want to have a look at the documentary, it's called The WASP Files, WASP. So that's an Australian bloke who's looking into that if you're interested in those kinds of things. But I just remember I was old enough to remember my dad being really upset. And it was because the government had brought in new gun laws across all the states and territories that heavily restricted the firearms types, calibers we could own. So we can't have semi-autos, we can't have AR-15s. We basically can have 10-round bolt actions, a couple of shotguns, lever actions. Above 7 rounds are considered semi-automatic. So there's very strict restrictions on what guns we could have. Now, handguns had always been regulated in Australia, but before 96, there wasn't. They weren't. They were also, that was the time they brought in the gun registration, mandatory gun registration of all firearms, a licensing process for all firearms.
Now,
So
can I
triggered-
interrupt you for real quick?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm glad you brought that up because right now, and this is funny because Trump's supposed to be a Republican, you guys, right? Republicans are supposed to be pro Second Amendment. Right now, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, along with the Trump administration, are actively trying to pursue a national gun registry. Now, if the Democrats did something like this, heads would be fucking rolling. I swear to God, the Republican Party would be losing their minds right now. But now all of a sudden the Republicans are doing it, and they're, the Republican voters are kind of cheering it on, at least, the MAGA cult anyways. And so did Australia have a national gun registry? I guess is my question.
It does now. The states and territories, it's a bit confusing because the federal government doesn't actually have the power to legislate firearms. It's up to the states and territories. That's a devolution of power listed in our constitution. But there was an agreement, a National Firearms Agreement, which we call the NFA. It's not the National Firearms Act like you have because it's not law. It's basically the states signing on to these gun laws, nationalized gun laws, which includes the mandatory registration, licensing system, restrictions on firearm types and calibers, the restrictive laws that we have that are getting worse at the moment. So there is that difference between the states and territories like there is here. And a lot of people don't understand that either because they all think we have nationalized gun laws because we did have that incident in 96, which has led to the restrictive gun laws we have today. And states are going further, much further than what was originally agreed.
Now, when you say it's broke up into states, obviously it's like the United States, right? Like they have their own little plots of land they call Michigan or Texas or whatever. It's the same difference, right?
Yes.
Now, are there, I guess, per se, right-leaning states and left-leaning states, or has it just all completely gone left?
We don't really have a difference between our two major parties. We call them the duopoly or the uni party. There is not much difference.
Right? There's a
the Labour Party, which I would say are Fabian socialists.
Maybe the leftists, right? They would be considered the leftists. Now, what would I guess be considered the people on the right there? What are they called?
They're called the Liberal National Party, but you cannot even consider them to be on the right because they're anti-gun, they're anti-free speech. They brought in some horrendous laws when they were in power in relation to this. Misinformation, disinformation laws. That's who we have on the right in Australia. There is no Conservative Party in Australia. We have a National Party now, One Nation, with all the anti-immigration rhetoric because people have had enough. So that's the political landscape. And then, of course, we have the Greens too, who are the commies, like the literal commies. And
they're the socialists, right? They're the Green Party. We have that here.
Yes.
We do have that here. But chat, are you guys listening? Are you guys listening to what she's saying right now? Because a lot of this is what what she's saying is eerily familiar right now. And this is getting serious. And so, what are the what do the people think about this collectively? I know that, anarchist libertarians are against collective stuff, but like, what is the country, the people of the country thinking are doing as a collective about any of this? Are they just going with it?
Well, I think I'll just tell you the stats. So at the 2022 federal election, this was, of course, as we were coming out of the insane restrictions that we had. My border was still closed in Western Australia at this election, by the way, in May 2022. That's how long WA was closed. So at that election where I ran as a candidate, 15% of the population voted for so-called freedom parties. You can use that term loosely, but so 15%, and that was in 2022. Now, there's a lot of people who donkey vote. So we have mandatory voting in Australia, so you have to show up to vote. You can draw whatever you like on the paper or write
Wait,
whatever you like, but you have to show up.
Rewind. Did you just say they have mandatory voting?
Yes.
What does that mean? Like you have to vote if you're the age to vote, like you have to go no matter what?
Yes, at the age of 18. At the age of 18, you have to vote in every state and federal election.
Oh my God. So you're being forced to vote, and that they're probably obviously seeing who you vote for. So if you vote the wrong way, you're automatically an extremist.
Well, the problem is there's lots of uneducated voters. So that is my biggest issue with the voting system, is people who are so checked out, or NPCs who don't ask questions beyond the surface level, who watch the lamestream media still. They show up and they vote for whoever's in today or whoever they're told to. So there's no critical thought going into who's running the bloody country or your state. And then you end up with these elections because the drone NPC, oh, red is a good color, I'll vote red because this ad said, like that kind of stuff. Or the social media is banned, I will keep voting Labor, they are protecting the kids. Those are the people who show up and vote and fuck us all up.
Now, do they have a big problem with lobbyists in Australia when it comes to your government officials, like who's in their pockets? And also, who's your central bank? Who's Australia's central bank? Like, who's in charge of the money?
So we have an RBA, which is like your Fed.
Okay, but who's running that? Is that BlackRock? Is that State Street? Is that, who's running, or is that IMF World Bank? Who's running that?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, because like we all know that central banking is the great evil of everything, because they literally fund everything from any side that's, out of control. Oh, let's go to the chat real quick. A large number of people who are not even aware of the problems, they ignore what is going on. They don't have to worry about it. That is spot on, Terry. Seriously, 100%. Most voters are uneducated. Here in America, though, we have access to like a lot of information. And I don't know if you guys have that in Australia, but like one thing, if I were a voting person, I'm done voting. I don't vote anymore.
Yeah.
But if I were a voting person, the first thing I would do is look up who the politicians' donors are. Who's their donors? Who's giving them money? Because the people who are giving them money are most likely nefarious, and that politician is going to try to pass nefarious laws for said nefarious people because there's a bunch of money involved. I mean, that's how politics works. That's how it goes in America. Is there a bunch of foreign influence in Australia like there is here?
Well, China owns most of our resources and mines. So there's a lot of that influence going on. I don't think Americans understand how big a influence China has on the Australian economy. But there is foreign lobbying as well. I would say there's more of a issue with, like you said before, who's donating to these political candidates, who's behind them, and what are they pushing, because it never seems to be about we the people.
Well, no, and that's everywhere. I mean, and this is where I get myself into trouble with a lot of people who are in the libertarian world of things that watch this show or whatever. But like, I believe that when you vote, you're consenting to whatever said politician is going to do. You're giving your consent to that. And when I had Michael White on a few weeks ago, like, he made a good argument. Well, whether you consent or not, they're still here. And that's a solid argument. It really, really, really is a solid argument. But like, as like a moral aspect for me, I don't want to force anybody's views on anybody else. But I do know this: in my country, let's just put it this way. I am a hop, skip, and a jump from Dearborn, Michigan. I don't know if you've ever heard about what's going on in Dearborn, Michigan, but it is over 90%. I don't want to say 99% because I don't really know, but it is over a 90% Muslim-run city here in Michigan. The mayor's Muslim, the cops are Muslim, the magistrates are Muslim. I know it because I got a ticket there over the summer and had to fight it. I had to see it, with my own eyes. But like, and that's fine. Like, if people want to come here and settle or whatever, but you don't get to tell us how to live our lives either. Like, and is that a problem in Australia? Like, is Islam taking over Australia? Like, is there a lot of that there? Or like, when you speak of immigration, who's coming there?
So the biggest population at the moment are coming from India. We almost have an open borders policy at the moment with India. We're recognizing their medical degrees, which has already caused some issues. So that's been the biggest influx of population we've had. And we've already seen it changing our culture. We also have a housing crisis. We don't have enough houses to put these people in. And then, of course, the welfare state is just so big now, given handouts and basically paid to live in our country while we slave away at the mines. It's really creating a divide in society back home. And I'm trying not to get swept up in collectivism and hating a particular group of people from a certain country, but I do understand. Like, I see the boys from the IRA are getting back together to fight for their homeland of Ireland. Yes! And I can kind of lament with them because I'm worried about my culture. There are people who are coming that don't share our values. I've always said immigration should be based on if you share the values of that country and if you are coming here to work. Those should be the two conditions. Will you assimilate? Not give up who you are as a person, but you have to recognize there is a certain culture here from hundreds and hundreds of years of people. And we're just seeing all that history erased because we have open borders now, because we suddenly acknowledge the freedom of movement, but only for particular people who then go on to vote for the government that brought them here and keeps them in power because they're changing the voting demographic. Like, it's such a big mess.
And it's, oh man, that's a lot to unpack because we're going through the same shit here right now. The same exact things you're rattling off right now, we are going through, but we still are a little bit protected for now. And this is why the Second Amendment is so important, because look, we're in a situation right now. Hey, Trumper friends on the chat, listen up and listen very closely. I'm about to make you really mad. The Trump administration is deploying the military on citizens of the United States of America right now. And now a lot of the Trumpers will be like, oh, well, they're just getting the freaking foreigners out of here. Let's get them out of there. What if ICE shows up where you're at right now and decides you have to go? You know what I'm saying? And you're here on a legal visa.
And I don't get due process, which every person should have at least. I mean, there has to be a check and balance. I get it's gotten to the point where they have to do something and physically remove people because of the Biden years when people could come in through the border. It would have been easier for myself to have immigrated here under Biden's administration, i.e. go to Mexico, cross the border illegally, and then get in the system, get a social security number. I'm still going through the bloody process with the government here. It's taken this long as a legal immigrant on a legal visa and not the H-1B bullshit, the Australian visa that you guys appreciate us having here.
By the way, H-1B stuff is not for white people, period.
It's for the Indians. That's your open border with
Indians,
India.
Middle East, all that stuff. That's who that's for. It has nothing to do with Europeans, Australians, anything like that. It has to do with people who are brown coming from, and it does, that's neither here nor there, I guess. But anyways, the fact of the matter is that things are a disaster there. They're working on a disaster here now. You come here from there. You're happy here. You're ecstatic to be here. That's quite apparent. Look at that smile, like right there. Boom.
Look at my flags. I still got my Aussie ones, but
it's so badass though. But honestly, like real talk, you come here and now you're seeing things up close and personal, how things are going here. How does that make you feel coming here, knowing that we're on a road to Australia per se?
Well, it's inspired me to get more involved here, particularly for defending your Second Amendment. When I've been going to these gun shows and telling stories from back home about the gun laws, this just cannot happen. This registration that bloody Pam Bondi's doing, no, you have to stop it before it creeps, because it's very hard once they've taken those rights and liberties away from you and then they change the demographic of the people who vote for you. It is very hard to get your freedoms back through your system of government if you let it fall to that extent. So you have to get involved at the local level. I know we bang on about this, the libertarians who are realistic. You have to get involved in the local level and affect change where you can. I'm lucky enough and you're blessed enough because we've put in the work to be influencers. I hate that term, but we are out there trying to educate people and have these fascinating discussions. And that's also part of what you should be doing. So I'm just glad I have the free speech rights to do that from here. Like I said before, my account's been shut down so many times because posting about guns in Australia firstly, and then anything else, it's been quite a challenge, but you just have to persevere because liberty will always win. And this country was founded on the principles of liberty. So if this is where we have to defend the West, and I'm so blessed to be here.
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Amen.
That is something.
Cheers.
Seriously, cheers. I already drank my shot. I can't. Oh, we drank it all already.
Where's your spare bottle? I've got my big.
Well, I already killed the bottle. That's the problem.
Oh, no.
But it was a mini bottle. I can't get retarded and come on here because that's how I get kicked out of all my things, which happens anyways. But like, as far as getting involved goes, that is something that most people are terrified of, because then you actually have to do the work. You actually have to go out there and put your boots on the ground, dig your feet in the dirt, and actually go talk to somebody instead of being some retard online who's just, arguing with other retards online. And what does that get you? It gets you nowhere besides really angry because said retard isn't listening to your retardedness. You know what I mean? Like, it's so dumb. And at the end of the day, Free says, whoa, where'd he go? Oh, Sean has a drinking problem. No drink. No, that's bullshit. Alcoholics go to meetings, bro. I'm here. No, but anyway.
He's drinking with an Aussie. We have drinking. This is just our culture. We're Irish as well, and I'm half Italian, so hello.
I'm an Irish Dago. Are you kidding me?
That's right.
And I'm a German. So, like, I have a little bit of Hitler, Mussolini, and the IRA all mixed into one. I mean, what the hell's going on? No, I'm just kidding.
Just a minimal amount of fascism. Just the minimal amount.
I mean, it's only fascist when the other team is doing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what people seem to think. It's only fascist. Hey, these Democrats are fascists. Never mind that Trump is deploying the military on United States citizens and calling it, we're just sending ICE over there. We're sending them to get you. The moment the president of the United States orders, or any president or prime minister or whatever, deploys the military on citizens, that's an act of war. That is 100% an act of war. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. This is why you need to keep your guns, is for said reasons, especially if he's going to keep deploying military from city to city to city. It's like, oh, we're going to go to Chicago. Oh, we're going to go to, LA. We're going to go to Detroit, wherever they're going to go. And they're just going to put little plants of military throughout the cities. And then what happens in 2028 when the next election comes and it's full martial law at that point? What happens then? Because guess what, you guys? I don't know if you know this or not, but when martial law is implemented, your constitution is null and void. Your rights are gone. It's over. That's how that works here in the United States. I don't know how it works anywhere else, but the moment they do that, it is a wrap. They can send people to your house to confiscate your guns. They can send people to your house to see if you're really the extremist they claim you to be, is or not. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do if you don't have any guns? You gonna defend yourself with a spatula and a dildo? Because that's not how that works at all. They're coming to your house with M4s, fully automatic. And that's just what it is. Ooh, Zach Attack. The Constitution died in 1791. Was the Constitution ever alive? Was it? Because I'm starting to wonder, and that's the thing. We could go straight, Lysander Spooner and be like, hey, this guy was talking about, I didn't sign anything, or I didn't sign shit. Not even 100 years after 1776, that book was published in 1867, right? So, where do you go from here, though? Where do you go? Because we have a situation where we are either going to be compliant little cowards, or men are going to have to be men. That's where we're at in this country. I'm pretty sure you guys have lost that in Australia because it's gotten that far.
I don't see how
confiscated yet. We haven't had that happen yet. And I'm not pushing for violence. I'm not saying you need to just go be violent and do all these things. Right? But you need to understand you have a Second Amendment for a reason. And those reasons are really coming to a head right now. And men really need to be men and stand up and say enough of this shit. And this stuff is biblical. Like self-defense is biblical. I'm gonna run through something real quick, you guys, just because the government itself here in the United States thinks they are higher than the Almighty God, which this country claims to be a Christian nation. But let me pull this up real quick. I saved it and I'm not good at this tech stuff. Here we go. When is self-defense supported in the Bible? Well, it's supported in Exodus 22:2, where that permits self-defense against a burglar breaking into your house. It speaks of it in Proverbs 31, when acting to stop abuse and protect the violent, acting to stop abuse and protect the voiceless aligns with loving your neighbor. And I'm not saying the verses verbatim. You need to go look these up for yourself. Exodus 22:2 and Proverbs 31. Just go read that. And preparedness. Jesus told disciples to buy swords for self-defense. Trade in your garments for swords, actually. Luke 22:36. I'm not going to read those verses. I want you guys to look up that for yourself. Now, a Christian nation that is claiming to be a Christian nation is saying that they are higher than the Almighty by telling you can't defend yourself in a certain way. That's not how this works. Not at all. None. Zero, zip, zilch. And I do implement a lot of Christianity in my show now because I am a firm believer in Christ, that he saved my life, and I will never, ever, ever deny that or deny him or his holiness. Like, that is the authority. Christ is my authority. Christ is many people's authority. And people will be like, well, the Bible says that you need to honor your government. You need to honor a government that is abiding by God. They missed that part. Tell me how Australian government is abiding by God. Tell me how the United States government is abiding by God. They're not. They're not. So you don't have to abide by anything. You abide by the one authority that is true, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, period. And that's my own thoughts and beliefs. And for the people who are upset about my Christianity, I'm not sorry. But like these are people who are government officials who think they're better than the holy. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't have this. This is unacceptable behavior. And we also need to stand up for ourselves.
Amen. This is why it's so obscene with the self-defense laws in Australia and even the UK. So they have this violent crime, rape crisis, grooming gangs going on, and the people cannot even have tools to defend themselves. Pepper spray, no. Handguns are banned completely for recreational or self-defense use in the UK. And you're leaving innocent people walking around as defenseless victims in a society that you're changing, and you're not even acknowledging a God-given right to life, which extends to the right to defend your life. And you do not put limits on what someone can use, which is what they're talking about at the moment. Maybe we'll let the peasants have pepper spray. Maybe. That's not a panacea either. So we need, as John Lott says, it's the equalizer. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be violent. I know that scares some people, but that's the reality. A cricket bat is not going to defend me if there's some bigger guy, more mobile. Like, the situation you should not be thinking, what tool am I allowed to pick up to fight for my life? It's just obscene that this is why you have that right to self-defense here and constitutional carry, which hopefully they expand. That is something that is acknowledged by your governments, and you fight for it every day. Because if you take that away from you, you're defenseless, and then they can take your free speech away. They can do whatever they like during an emergency, and you're sitting ducks without the means to defend yourself.
Bam, bam, bam. You just drove that nail in really hard. You just did.
Sorry, I've been on the beers. I'm going to switch to the Jamo next.
No, you drove that nail in so hard just now. You really did. Because you want to know what? People can be like, well, the First Amendment's the most important because then you can say what you need to say. No, it's really not. If you're a believer in the Constitution, if you're one of those people who buy into it or whatever, the right to self-defense is the most important right of all, because without it, you don't have any rights. You don't have that equalizer. You're going to have that, hypothetical situation. You're going to have that guy who's 6'5", 275 pounds coming to your house to do unspeakable things to you, and you have nothing at your house that you're allowed to have to defend yourself. No, full stop. This isn't how this is going to work. You have the right to defend yourself. I don't care if you're a criminal. I don't care if you're a foreigner. You have that right. You have that inherent right from the man above, Jesus Christ. You have those rights to protect yourself and your family and your property. Don't get it twisted. Like a lot of people be like, well, somebody broke into your house and you killed them because you valued your possessions more than their life. Fuck yeah, I did. Yes, I did. Because it's not about those possessions. I have a wife here that I have to protect. I have to protect myself. I don't fuck my possessions. I don't care about that. You came into my house unwelcomed. That's it. That's the end of the road. You better get right with Jesus, because that's it, man. Call your mama, call your daddy, and whoever you need to call. I'm not going to give you that much time. But the moment you come onto my property unwelcome, it is a wrap. And you have that right. I don't care what the law says. You have the right to carry a gun. I don't care what the law says. You have a right to own any type of gun you choose to own as long as you can afford to buy it. I don't care what the law says, because shall not be infringed means exactly that. And we need to start treating it as such. Instead of being like, well, bump stocks are bad. Maybe we shouldn't have semi-automatic AR-15s or whatever. No, we should have whatever the government has. And I mean that by nukes. I mean that by tanks. I mean that by rocket launchers. If the market allows it and you can afford it, you should be able to buy it. Because like I said, when men in suits show up to your house with M4s, you don't want to have a spatula and a dildo in your hand. You want to have the same M4 or something even better to defend yourself. And I'm not saying be violent towards the state, but I'm saying you have these rights in order to protect yourself from the state. Because that's the other thing that people misconstrue about the Second Amendment is, well, we got to protect ourselves from the bad guys. Who are the baddest of the bad people in the entire world? Your government. And that's who you're protecting yourselves from. That's who the bad guys are, not your fucking neighbors. Most 99% of people are not protecting themselves from their neighbors. Most people, I mean, I don't like all my neighbors, but I'm tolerable with them. Like, I don't want to kill them or hurt them or anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not a people person. You know what I mean? Surprisingly enough, wow.
Well, you are in Detroit, so it's better to be a little bit suspect. Although I don't know what area you're in. Sorry, my visions of
You want to know
Detroit
what?
is
I'll
from
tell you
8
guys what.
Mile,
Well,
Eminem.
no, I'm literally within walking distance of 8 Mile. I'm close. I'm not technically in the city of Detroit. I'm in a suburb of Detroit, but literally just outside of Detroit. I can walk to 8 Mile in about 20 minutes. On
Can
foot.
I just say, I was actually listening to the Eminem show the other day, and the song White America, it's number 2 on the album. Those lyrics, like listening to them today and him talking about free speech, like forget what he's doing now and how he's been paid off and blah, blah, blah. Those lyrics from that time, if you listen to that, I encourage everyone to, I know that he's not everyone's cup of tea, but rap isn't everyone's cup of tea, let alone Eminem. So, but I've always been a huge fan ever since I was old enough to buy the CD from the CD store. So,
Well, I mean, he does say "fuck Bush" in that song. So
yes.
if you hate Bush as much as I do, it's an acceptable song. But there was a time
And Tipper Gore.
that song made me mad at one point because I used to be a Bush supporter. That's my
Did you
I was
really?
real conservative. I
I was going to ask you when you became. I was a neocon too, I confess. I
voted
don't
for
know,
Bush twice.
coming from the left or right, I don't know, it's both as bad as each other, but I was a neocon. So you were a Bush supporter until when?
2006, I started asking questions, and then I worked in the restaurants, bartending, waiting tables, and stuff like that. And I had a buddy of mine who was a big 9/11 truther,
That's right.
and so
Yes.
and rest in peace. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he really opened my eyes to what was happening at that time frame, and pretty much walked me to Ron Paul.
Yeah.
So 2007 is when I found Ron Paul. And this was this crazy old man. At the time, I didn't know who the fuck Ron Paul was. And to me, he was this crazy old man that was talking about abolishing the IRS, ending the Federal Reserve, and ending the wars that were provoked in the first place, and saying all the things that I had never heard in my entire life. But because of my 9/11 truther friend, because that's what they called them back then. They were 9/11 truthers, and because of him, I found Ron Paul and I fell in love. I literally fell in love with Ron Paul, not in a gay way. I know, okay, whatever, gay. No, I fell in love with that man because he was speaking to my heart and he was speaking to my feelings about what was happening. And that's when I joined. I didn't actually join the Libertarian Party. I just kind of became a libertarian. I didn't actually join the Libertarian Party until 2023. And I am no longer a paying member, to say the least.
Yeah.
Because, well, for obvious reasons. I don't need to go into all that. They did that to themselves. But, the wars and the spending and the 2008 crash radicalized me. The 2008 crash was really what put me over the edge, because what happened was, that's my generation coming out of college, trying to figure out life, trying to find jobs, trying to buy a house. You're not getting a home loan. You're not getting a job. And that's just the way it is. So I bartended and waited tables for quite a few years because of that, which was a very good living, to be quite honest with you. Like, don't knock the service industry. I'm telling you right now, because when 2008 was going on, while people were getting their houses foreclosed and losing their jobs and not being able to find work, I was literally slinging drinks at an Irish pub in downtown Milford, Michigan, which is a little town, small town. That's where I grew up. That's where I'm from originally. And I'm making over $70,000 a year making drinks. Now, back in 2007, 2008, 2006, 70 grand is good money. It's not good money anymore. It's not, unless you're a single person with no children and have no, you don't have a bunch of debt, then you're probably okay at 70K, but 70K a year ain't shit no more, really. Things, because things have gotten so crazy expensive, but don't sleep on that industry, because that got me through. It literally did. I had a roofing business before that. I lost it. There was no work, and these big companies started financing roofs. That I was never a big banker, had access to big banks. So that business went under. What are you going to do? So I made Jack and Cokes and poured Guinness for people and Black and Tans and made $70,000 a year. By the way, we were allowed to drink behind the bar. It was
yes, of course, like, Irish.
If people want to fucking buy you fucking shots, knock yourselves out. Hell yeah. That's great. So I got paid $70K a year to party with my friends. Yeah, I'll take it. But don't sleep on that, you guys, because what happened in 2008 is coming soon. Very, very, very soon at that. So don't sleep on slinging drinks and waiting tables, because if you get in the right spot, you can make a lot of money. You can make very good money, But anyways, now that I've gone off on a rant and off the beaten path, what we do have to talk about? You have some news.
I do have some news.
You have some news, and you need to tell everybody about it right now. I'm not going to spoil it.
So I have been honored to be nominated for a Second Amendment Award here in my new home in the United States. It's held at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas in January, and the awards is called the Gundies. And I've been nominated as Micro Influencer of the Year. It was a surprise nomination. I have been, like I said, trying to get involved here and meeting with people, telling these stories so we know how important the Second Amendment is. So to be nominated for an award, it's in the micro influencer category because I'm still a small account. As I said, I've been shut down, censored. I'm surprised I still have a voice, but it's still really rewarding to even be acknowledged for the work that I've done and continue to do for my country back home. And thank you for giving me a platform. And if you want to vote for me, go to thegundies.com and you can vote for me every day till the 15th. They have a weird voting system here in the US. You get to vote every day.
Yeah, but they break it down though. So like they don't have to look through all this stuff. Like they can
you can just go for me.
Micro influencer category and do. I voted for you.
Thank you, sir.
I did. You sent it to me on Signal. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll vote for you. And they're like, I want to come on your show and talk about it. I'm like, even better. Let's go. That's very exciting though. And that means that people are paying attention to what you're doing. And let's come on. Let's go. Oh, there's congrats from
bless.
Both our
Thank
houses.
You.
This is my homie, actually, dude.
Cheers.
Like next homie of mine. They're hilarious. They hate the state too.
Bravo.
Will and I are going to have a conversation soon. We need to. We're going to maybe even a debate on precious metals versus cryptocurrency, because he's a crypto guy and I'm not so much. So
please do. I'm interested in that debate because I'm always on the fence too.
And I'm always interested to learn more. I just have feelings and stuff. So, I could be wrong, so Will, soon, I want to reach out. It's going to happen. And congrats. Look at that. And that's awesome, Kate. Aww. You're an amazing voice for the movement. See, people love you. People love what you're doing.
Draft picks.
This is, amazing. Like it's good to see our people get nominated for. So I'd never even heard of the Gundies before. So this is very cool. All right, so you get to go to Vegas and see if you win or not.
Yes. I can't wait. I'm going with Gun Owners of America. I know some of the blokes from them, and I've got a media pass to go with my YouTube channel, Shooting the Breeze with Lady Liberty. So I'm just excited to be and around so many inspirational people. The gun community here has been so welcoming and so helpful. Honestly, I know I've been involved in the Libertarian Party here a bit too, but it's been just a completely different experience, just different vibe. And I know that's a reflection of the people involved, but it just feels, I feel it like I finally found my home because I didn't quite fit in the Libertarian Party. Maybe it's because I'm an anarchist now, but
Well, that is hard. So, like, I'm an anarchist. I consider myself a very radical anarchist, actually, but that's neither here nor there. Some people would make fun of me and say I'm a statist for certain beliefs that I have, but nobody's perfect at the end of the day. Well, like, I do. Okay, let me put it to you this way. I love the Libertarian Party because I met some fantastic people because of the Libertarian Party. I really did. People like you, people like Michael White, Amity, Free, Zack Attack, Will, guys like that, a plague for both of our houses, all these guys. I have actual homies, Ben the emo ANCAP, or he goes by his real name now, Ben Weir. It's kind of cool to see him grow up and his name out there. It's cool because he's like, I'm Ben the emo ANCAP, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm Ben Weir. He's awesome. Like, David Fight's cool, and we all have different ideas and what liberty and freedom means to us. But at the end of the day, we also know that it's what's most important. Unfortunately, from my end anyway, the Libertarian Party has become somewhat of a lost cause because of 2024. And maybe I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, I'll eat it, but as of right now, I just can't, I'm not renewing my membership and I don't really want much to do with it. Do I want to, talk to Liberty people? Of course. But as far as like pushing an actual political party, I'm good. I'm good on that because liberty is more important than any party policy or party politics. There's, liberty is the end all goal. That is what we want. Whether it, and I'm not mad at my minarchists, which minarchists are libertarians. Like, if I had to choose to what we had right now, if somebody held a gun to my head right now and was like, hey, you have to choose between what's going on in America right now or go to like a libertarian world, of course I'm going to pick the libertarian world. Yeah. It's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. But like, I wish the party would start to figure out what's important, what's not important, stop wasting money on things that are whatever, and get back to what's important and only focus on local state elections. Stop running presidents, stop running, national party politicians. There's no point in doing it. You have no chance. You have no chance. But we've seen it in state and local to where like libertarians are getting elected, like Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a very libertarian state. They have been for quite some time now. They seem to keep, getting local people and state people involved, and New Hampshire is doing a thing. It's a little bit different there in New Hampshire because they're running under the Republican and Democrat facade or whatever. But like Pennsylvania is actually running libertarians in local elections and winning. So that's cool. And I like seeing that. And I wish that the party itself would focus on that more because they don't have the resources to play with the big dogs at a national level. They just don't. So why do it? There's no point in doing it. Well, we got to have ballot access and this, that, or the other. Do you?
Yeah.
Like, do you? Do you really have to do that? Like, do you have to, and then they completely embarrassed themselves last year. They embarrassed themselves last year by the national convention itself was an embarrassment. And we don't have enough time to get into that. I did a whole show with Rechtenwald.
I watched
about why that convention should have been deemed illegitimate in the first place.
I was there. I was a witness to the shit show.
And I'm like, this is not good. But like, okay, in the grand scheme of things, if you don't like the presidential candidate you pushed or that the people voted for, don't run them at all then. Don't run anybody. Don't turn around and endorse the enemy, which was Donald Trump, which is what they did. And I don't see a path where they're going to rebound from that because, a lot of people left their status ways to come to a party that was going to do something different, and then turned around and endorsed the guy that they weren't supposed to vote for in the first place. Like, that's a real bad look, and I'm not too sure they're coming back from that. I just don't see it.
I think the issue is there's always going to be factions that emerge in any political party. And once a particular faction with a particular ideology gets control of the party by playing political games, and all this energy, by the way, could be spent actually advancing liberty, but we'll go play these games. We'll pretend to play with the big boys. We might get some money out of it. We might get a bit of media coverage. Okay. But you have more success at a state and local level for that, for advancing the brand of liberty. I just don't see the political process, especially in Australia too, by the way. I do not see the point in, I have expended so much time and energy like yourself, blood, sweat, and tears into the party machine, all to end up back where you began. So it's much better use of your time, energy, resources, and love to actually get involved in your passion. I found my passion through libertarian, through guns in Australia, with our only libertarian senator we've ever had, David Leyonhjelm, who I fell in love with too. That was my journey to libertarianism through guns as an Australian. So I think it's the factionalism. That's why I got kicked out of the party back home. I could have got elected at the state election if they had endorsed me, but because an anti-gun faction got control of the, not anti-gun, but did not want to talk about it. You cannot campaign on guns, which to me is, okay, so you're anti-gun because we need the Second Amendment here. Okay, you bang on about we're for free speech. You cannot have free speech without the means to defend it. Like, I'm the person in the corner saying that. I get kicked out because other people get involved. Factionalism. So it's much better, I've found, I'm not giving anyone life advice, but going it alone and doing what you can do as an individual to advance liberty, just like you're doing with this show.
Well, that's what happened to my boy, Stephen McNamara, who I really need to talk to and get back on my show. I miss that guy. If you're listening, dude, you're my guy, man. He's in Scotland or whatever, but he kind of had a similar thing happen to him. He was a libertarian, or part of their libertarian thing that was going on in Scotland. But apparently he was too libertarian and they kicked him out.
Yeah.
For real. They so when he ran for office, he had to run for an independent or run as an independent or whatever, because even the libertarians in Scotland didn't want him no more because he was too libertarian, And that's like one thing that, libertarians are funny about, because they're the biggest qualm with libertarians is they say they're against collectivism, but then you're asking them to be a part of a collective.
Yes, the irony.
That's the Libertarian Party in a nutshell. If you are joining a political situation, a political party, that is a collective. And so you're saying you're an individual, but you have to be a part of a collective. Well, the collective is not going to all be the same. It's just not, and that's what you're seeing here. And that's a problem.
That's why I've coined the phrase herding libertarians, because we're all such staunch individualists, most of us, that trying to organize, mobilize, you have clash of ideas and arguments, which is what I love about the party, though, the conversations you have when you go to LP events. You're never going to go home bored. It is stimulating. They're very intelligent people, maybe on the spectrum, but we're all a little bit spurgy. So there is benefits and pros and cons to everything in life. You just have to weigh up what most benefits yourself and the future of the world.
What is your most important issue outside of guns?
Well, self-defense, but I suppose that's linked to guns.
Outside of that, though, outside of like self-defense, gun, what is Lady Liberty, Kate Fantinel's number one issue outside of that? What's important to you?
Well, it would be free speech. particularly coming from a nation where we don't have the First Amendment, and then you're seeing what's happening. The marketplace of ideas is so important. And we've all spoken about before, I would hope. We don't want to drive negative or evil ideas underground. We want to have that conversation to change people's minds. So to have the ability to speak your mind on whatever platform, I think that is just so important. And I can't believe, I was thinking today how much technology has advanced since I first got online, and the amount of control. We are now talking about the government controlling the internet. And we're not talking about all the bad shit you can go down. I'm wearing my Only Guns shirt, and there's a lot of issues with some of the shit.
That. Where did you get that? That is amazing. I love it.
I got it online. There's a group called Only Guns, which that's what I'm about as well. It's so easy in this day and age to just whore yourself out there and be part of the degeneracy we're seeing. But
The plague says the Spike quote about hurting butterflies on meth is accurate.
Brilliant.
It is.
I heard a rumor he might run for the presidential candidate. Have you heard this rumor? You should get him on your show. I should get him on my show.
I had him on in 23, I believe.
He's brilliant. We love him down under.
Oh, he's my favorite. And I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this. I don't give a shit because that's what I do. Spike Cohen was the best voice for the Libertarian Party. It's not even close. Now, when the Mises Caucus took over, they kind of put Dave Smith at the forefront of that. But Dave Smith is not Spike. And Dave's all right. You know, he's all right, but he's not Spike. Spike was the ultimate libertarian to me. He was great about speaking. He was great with debates. He is great with, I shouldn't say was, he is all those things. He's a good human. He's got a good head on his shoulder. He's not one of those autistic maniacs who just has diarrhea at the mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
And I feel like when Mises took over, Spike kind of got shoved off to the side and put in the shadows when he was a way better messenger than Dave Smith ever was. It's not even really close, in my opinion, you know. And I'm sure I'll get death threats in my chat about that, for all I know, you know, because the libertarians are somewhat autistic and very tribal, you know what I mean? But like, no, honestly, Spike was the ultimate libertarian, in my opinion. He was great. He should have been the presidential candidate in 2020, not Joe Jorgensen. But that's not the way the cards fell. He's a great human, but at this point, I don't want him to run for president because he has no chance of winning. I want him to stay with You're the Power and be effective in doing something positive in communities that are local and helping people. That's what matters. Why go out there and run for president to take what? Maybe Spike could take 10% of the votes at best. He deserves 100% of them, but he'll probably Spike with the right resources, you know, and stuff like that. Probably 10% of the votes, which libertarians would be like, yeah, that's a big win. There's nothing exciting about being the best loser.
Well, it's the 5% and you get all these benefits, remember, buds. It's being used as a political pawn. That's what parties do as well. Spike is brilliant where he is.
Yeah, like I just want him to stay there. That's where it's important. Like I love Spike Cohen. I have no bad things to say about Spike Cohen, honestly. He is a great human being. And so, you know, would I want him to run for president? Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be great. But like, I don't want him to because he's doing more important things with You Are the Power. You know, there's no point in going through all that trouble just to lose. You know, you're going to lose. You know, you're not going to win the national elections. Libertarians don't have the donors. They don't have the central banks behind them. You know, you're not going to get elected when you're screaming and the Fed. The Fed runs everything, right? Like that's who runs the show here. It's the central banksters. That's every country in the entire world. Your politicians are just puppets, you know? So like, let's just keep him where he's doing positive things instead of wasting a bunch of his time and effort and a bunch of money that the party doesn't have anyways because they squandered it all away on lawsuits in Michigan. Oh, I said that out loud. Oh, yeah, the Libertarian Party's broke. I don't know if you guys know that. They're broke. And they're going to be broke for a long time. So let's just stay local. Let's just do that. No more. The libertarians got to pull their head out of their ass when it comes to this running for president stuff and running for any national politics. Local, local, local. You said it yourself. That's where the money and the time should be spent, because locally changes everything. You get all the, like, hypothetically, you're in, in Texas, in whatever city, and say you and Axel and, Dan Berman and, all you guys get elected to your local city council.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then
Libertarian Goth, she's here too in San Antonio.
Libertarian Goth, that's what I'm saying, her, like, all you guys could start, taking over local chairs and start doing some real shit, like nullifying yourselves from the federal government. That's what matters. That's what matters. Because libertarians don't have APEC. Libertarians don't have China lining their pockets. Libertarians don't have Saudi Arabia lining their pockets. They definitely don't have the banks behind them. That's for sure. So get somewhere where you can make a difference and do something positive without breaking the bank. Because running a libertarian president is a waste of money. It's a huge waste of money. I think Chase Oliver raised something like $500,000, $400,000, something like that. That is like that's like me or you having $5 in our pocket to the Republicans and Democrats who are running for office. $500,000 is a joke. It's nothing. And that's one thing I've learned through doing this podcast since 2022 and talking to people like Spike and Michael White and anybody else who has run for office in the Libertarian Party, because I used to really push libertarian candidates on this show, is it's all one big giant fundraising mechanism. And who ever raised the most money pretty much wins. That's how this goes. Libertarians don't got it. They ain't even close. You're looking at a guy who ran for president that only raised $400,000 to $500,000. You're not going to win. That's why he took 0.4% of the votes. I'm not saying he's bad or good or anything like that. It's not a knock against him. It's just reality and how things work,
Yeah, we need to spend more time and energy influencing culture and the next generation. That's where I'm at. Like, by all means, do your stint volunteering and getting involved with the party. See what it's like. It's an educating experience, and you do meet a lot of brilliant people. That's how we met, after all. Right. But it's long term. It doesn't even have to necessarily be local. Like my two-way stuff I've done from Australia, and now I'm here nominated for awards. So find your niche as well would be my advice. And just, we have to do it the old school way by having conversations with people face to face if we have to, because that's how we change our culture.
And I'm with that. Like, not only do we need to have conversations face to face, but like there needs to be open debates on certain things as well.
Yes.
Like we need to get back to civil discourse. Like my boy Mike Decentralized, dude, he was big on civil discourse. Love that guy. Township Liberation used to sponsor my show before I, went on my hiatus or whatever. Like, there's civil discourse is so important to getting better, because you never know, within your argument, you might find a common thread in somewhere. Like I tell people this all the time. Some of the best friends I've ever had in my life are people I've been in fistfights with, literally. Because that's how I grew up. I'm a Gen Xer. We beat the shit out of each other pretty much daily. We would go to we had a certain buddy whose mom, she was a single mom, and she didn't come home from work until like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. We would go there after school, probably catch a buzz, and put on some boxing gloves and beat the shit out of it. And then go have beers and laugh about it on the weekend. And I'm not saying that's how we need to do it or whatever, but like civil discourse is that important. Like I've gotten into some heated arguments with some very, very good people, and we had our little spat. And then the next thing you know, we probably didn't talk for a couple days or maybe a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And then you're like, oh man, I'm sorry. That was bullshit and stupid. And the other person's like, yeah, that was dumb, wasn't it? Because at the end of the day, all of us as, Americans are people who come to America. We want the same shit. Really, as a whole, we want the same shit. We want to be able to afford to live. We want to be able to have stuff. We want to be able to have rights. We want to be able to, live a life that isn't so paycheck to paycheck. We want to have good policies that aren't sending our children to die for wars and things that have nothing to do with us. Like most everybody wants those things, but we have a different way of getting there, and that's why I tell people, get off social media, get off TV. Like it's poison. And unfortunately, like if I didn't do this show, I wouldn't have any social media besides maybe Facebook for my family and friends. You know what I'm saying? Other than that, like I wouldn't have socials at all. It's toxic. It's poison.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
And people get way too worked up about things that aren't important. Like for instance, right now everybody's like, oh my God, Tim Pool and Candace Owens are a big argument. Who cares? They're not restricting your rights, or they're not, writing laws and policies that are taking money out of your pockets, are selling, they're not committing treason. They're not doing anything. They're just people who have a voice online and people worship them. But nothing they do has any bearing on your everyday life. What does have everyday bearing on your life though? National gun registries. That has a bearing on every day of your life. What else has, a bearing on everyday life? The monetary system. What are they doing with our money? Why is Trump about to send another $800 million to Ukraine when we're broke? Which means they're going to have to print it and devalue our dollar to do so. Those are important issues. Who gives a fuck about Candace Owens and Tim Pool? That shit is dumb. It matters nothing. It matters nothing. What matters is the people who are, passing laws and implementing policies that hurt us. That's what matters. And those people are not doing that. It's dumb.
But Buds, it's going to influence the midterms because they're part of the cultural zeitgeist now. So people aren't watching mainstream news. So they turn on these characters and they've built such a following. Like it's almost cultish, which is always dangerous to be worshipping celebrities in a way that.
Yes. Like I don't want, I want everybody to do their own research. I want people to take whatever those people are saying with a grain of salt. I want people to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Look it up. Look it up. I'm there to drop you a carrot and give you, something. Look it up for yourself to prove me right or wrong. That's what we should be doing. It's the dumbest shit ever. Everything's ass backwards. It's dumb, But like influencers are, I'm nobody. I'm nobody. They're nobody. They think they're somebody, but they're nobody. Because we're not the ones who are making rules and regulations on everyday people. We have to get out of this mindset and start. It's about choosing your important, right? Choose your important. The right to self-defense is important. The right to free speech is important. The right to not being under warrantless surveillance is important. We have the 4th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, stuff like that. The right for states to decide how they run is important. That's why we have a 10th Amendment, right? Like stuff like that. Like we have to choose our important rather than just go with, well, everybody's mad about this today, so let's be mad about that. No. Choose your important. And there's a lot of important going on in Australia right now. You've made the right choice to choose that important over Dave Smith and Candace Owens are really mad at each other. And no one cares. And I love you that you're not falling for that shit because it's dumb. Or as the X world would say, gay and retarded.
Yeah. I love we can say that here on this show in the United States of America. Straight to jail back home for using hate speech, I think, is the new rules.
Hate speech is free speech. Speech you don't agree with is free speech. Saying that the sky is black is free speech.
Yeah.
But like I said, do your research. Don't, take whatever we say with a grain of salt and go look for it yourself. We're just dangling carrots for you and hopefully you figure it out, But Kate, before we go, how can we find you? How can we support you? Tell us what's next.
So my aim at the moment is getting votes for this Gundy's Award. I would love to be there and win maybe, but getting in
One
the
more
top
time, how
5.
do you vote? One more time.
So go to thegundys.com and then I'm in the Micro Influencer of the Year category. You can vote every day between now and December 15. So if you want to see me win a Guernsey here in the US, I'd be so blessed. But I'll still be doing my show on YouTube, Shooting the Breeze with Lady Liberty Australia. I'll be covering SHOT Show on the ground. So I can't wait to see some of the guns you've got that are banned back home. But I'll be flying the flag for Australia because I need Americans to understand if you don't have the Second Amendment, you have nothing.
Which I hope, the people who are listening to this understand that. Because we're not far behind. This is what's terrifying. But we do have 400 million guns in the world and are not in the world, just here in the United States. I tell people all the time, look, Paris burned down Black Rock. German farmers slung literal shit on the state's doorstep during all that nonsense, right? The Mexicans burned down the Israeli embassy. And here we are in the United States of America with more guns than, no, never mind. I'm not going to go there. We have more guns than all those countries combined. I don't need the feds here today.
That's it. I don't want to get you in trouble, kicked up there already.
No, we have more guns than all those places combined.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Venezuela had a big uprising too,
Yes.
just last year as well, because they were sick of the leftist bullshit. Okay. But the United States, who has more guns than all those places combined, sit here and it's crickets. And that's absolutely disgusting. Men, you need to be men. Christians, you need to be Christians. The time is now to raise up. But keep going. I had to interrupt you. I like rants. I can't.
No, amen. Amen. And of course, that can mean getting involved at the local level. We don't want to be. I need to go home to Australia, so I can't be put on another list that won't let me back in. Yes.
That's awesome though. And I love what you're doing. I always have, we've been on each other's shows a few times at this point, and I hope there's many more. But what is one thing you can say to your people and Americans right now before we go?
You have to fight for your freedoms. I know that sounds cliche, but I'm from the spirit of the Anzacs. We call them down under, where we had to fight for our country, and we need to embellish that spirit again. I just feel like people are so beaten down and part of the system, and it takes bravery to walk away and build your own life. And it's a risk to speak about this kind of thing anymore. But you only have one life and you need to find your purpose, and you need to leave the world a better place than you left it, I think. So that's my little homily. I'm not as good at homilies as you are.
I just go off.
I've had too many Jamison.
I'm a rant guy. Like, I'll just go off on rants. Like, I'll go on, I've been on Free Show or whatever, and they're like, every rebuttal is a rant. That'll be the chat. Everything's a rant. And I'm like, well, because everything kind of is a rant at this point. Like, geez, man. But Kate, thank you so much for doing this. This has been awesome. Go vote for her at the Gundys. She told you. One more time, how are we voting for you?
Vote 1 Lady Liberty Australia at thegundys.com.
Amazing. Under which
Micro influencer of the year. I have an American and Australian flag in the background, and I think you can tell it's me. So that's how to find me. And please follow my YouTube channel, Shooting the Breeze with Lady Liberty. I'll be on the ground in Vegas at SHOT Show in January. I can't wait. I get to go home first, of course. I've been missing my family and Australia so much. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like going back. Haven't been home since April. So maybe when I come back, I'll fill you in on the situation back home.
I will definitely be ready for that. And please like, share, follow, subscribe to Buds in Reality. At Buds in Reality, it's just like it's spelled on here. Just hit the at handle before that without the apostrophe. And if you love my work and love me a long time, I don't have any sponsors yet. So if you want to buy me a beer, a little bit of whiskey, cash at me, Buds in Reality, just like you see on my handle on X. Love you guys so much. You know, it's always a pleasure to do this, and peace, love, and liberty. Be good, y'all. Boom.